Welcome, Consumer Law 101 viewers. My name is Mike Adada. I'm the CTO of Swift Law North. Joining us today is Aaron Swift, who's the CEO of Swift Law North. How are you, Aaron?
Good, Mike, thanks.
All right, today's lecture video is the very first of our FCRA 101 series and is titled ABCs of the FCRA, Part 1. Who and what does it cover? So let's start here. What is the purpose of the FCRA?
Mike, that's a great place to start for this entire 10-part video series on the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is the FCRA. We might say FCRA or FCRA throughout this series, not just the credit reporting series, but all of our video series. But for short, the Fair Credit Reporting Act is the FCRA, and it's kind of in the title, Fair Credit Reporting. And then Congress passed this law several decades ago after it identified that inaccurate credit reports started to really impact not only individual consumers, but the economy in general. And so they had all these different players, all these different processes, and the government finally said it's time to regulate this industry. It's time to standardize some of these, responsibilities. And specifically, Congress said, and I quote, "This is a grave responsibility that the CRAs must exercise with fairness, impartiality, and a respect for the consumer's right to privacy." And generally, then the FCRA calls it this elaborate mechanism that must be regulated.
Okay, and what do you mean by elaborate mechanism?
So first, it's important. Congress coined the term, not me. So that's in the congressional record, which speaks to the complexity of this situation and why we needed to regulate it. And that complexity is due to the fact that you have so many different players and how they fit into larger economy and banking. And then not only do you have these different players, but they're competitors and they don't want to necessarily share information. So the whole idea is, what can we do to standardize this realm of our banking industry, make it most fair to consumers, but then will also impact in a positive way the overall economic, outlook.
Okay, and who are the players that you mentioned?
Altogether, there are 6 main players in the FCRA world or credit reporting world. That is the credit reporting agencies, or CRAs for short, furnishers of information. Those are the people that give the information to the CRAs. Users of credit reports. That might be a finance company or a credit card company who wants to use that report to determine creditworthiness. The consumers themselves, of course. I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but it'll be interesting perspective to think that the consumers, we are the product here, not the actual clients. 5th would be government agencies and regulatory bodies, and then private attorneys general, which is a fancy way of saying attorneys like myself who in the private practice area use this law to enforce those rights. It's basically like the government giving private lawyers a right to act as an attorney general because they said this is an important right. We as a government don't have the resources to do this ourselves, so we want private lawyers to help enforce this act.
Okay, and can you further break down those 6 players in the credit sphere one by one?
Yeah, and that's very important. And it's where we have to start when we're talking about the FCRA. So first, credit reporting agencies, or CRA. Of course, everyone knows or should know by now the big 3. Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. It's essentially any entity that compiles information about a consumer and then sells that information to third parties to determine the creditworthiness or employment or other reasons. And so the CRAs are the people that collect that information. The furnishers, as I said before in brief, they furnish the information. So think of Capital One. Every month, if you make your payment on time, Capital One is furnishing that information to their credit reporting agencies. Just like collectors, when they put a new account in the collection section of a credit report, they're furnishing that information. The users are the ones that I said use it. If you sign a credit application, they're going to pull your credit to determine if you get the card or a job, a car, a mortgage. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. The consumers, just what it sounds like. In the United States, every adult, in fact, some kids, even though they shouldn't, have credit reports. And so the consumers cover everyone. But the important thing is we have to distinguish business use. So the law does not cover business debts.
Mm.
So that you have to understand that distinction. Then regulatory agencies, they kind of oversee and make the rules. They kind of help with the definitions and the standards. And then lastly, like I said myself, we are a player that comes into this sphere to help enforce the consumer's rights. And that is helping, with the broader goals. Because again, the government doesn't have the resources to necessarily do it. So they empower us as private attorneys.
Okay, so now we've covered the main players in credit reporting. What does the FCRA cover?
In short, it covers the rights, responsibilities, and regulations applied to those 6 players.
Mm-hmm.
So it determines what can CRAs do and what can they not do. Even what is a CRA? It lays out the rights and responsibilities of the consumers. When do I have the right to pull my own report? How do I challenge certain things? It regulates the users. When are you allowed to access someone's credit report? And that's very important. And again, one of the hallmarks of this law is privacy. If someone accesses a credit report, they may find out your social security number, your addresses, medical debts, really private personal information. So we have to protect it a lot. And if you just think of it from a fairness perspective, a privacy perspective, and accuracy and completeness, that's what we're going for here.
Okay, that sounds great and will be especially beneficial for credit professionals and insiders. To that end, Aaron, can you tell our CL 101 viewers how this all connects to the larger picture of credit repair?
That's a great question and a perfect way to summarize this first video, Mike. So with all of these lecture videos, we are trying to teach the fundamentals of these consumer laws, because those fundamentals really are the keystone, the hallmark of really successful credit repair, and even just successful efforts to make your credit improved or to make sure it's accurate and complete. And so understanding the fundamentals of the Fair Credit Reporting Act is the first step, because those fundamentals applied to later concepts from future videos really lay out the strengths of this law, how it can be used effectively, and really increase the outcomes that we all want for our consumers and clients, which is deleted things off credit reports that shouldn't be there, higher credit scores, accurate and complete credit reports, and then as an added bonus, so it's not just standard credit repair, if you really understand these laws, you can then get damages for the client on top of it with little to no risk, because most of these cases are taken on a contingency fee basis. So again, to summarize, these are the fundamentals of these laws that we need to then apply to factual circumstances and credit reports and use that to dispute. It kind of boggles my mind that this whole space exists in a way without lawyers. The fundamental principle is there is a law that shapes and outlines how this thing must work, this thing being credit repair. And so it just seems natural to me that that takes legal analysis. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're offering these videos. We want our scholars, our viewers to learn more, become more effective, and then ultimately partner up with us when it comes time to sue. Because whether the issue's not fixed or even if it is fixed, we want to go past just fixing the problem. These consumers are probably entitled to damages at little to no risk.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Aaron. And as always, if there's any more questions, you can reach us at the weekly sessions or in the chats as well. Thank you.
And again, now we have our second mascot potentially here, Swift Law North and Consumer Law 101, Finn and Penny. You may see them in and out of the shots, but we welcome them and thank you all.